Imagine the ratings for a golf match between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. After challenging Biden to another no-holds-barred debate later this week, Donald Trump...
Why stop the challenges there, Donald Trump said. Let's just keep the challenges rolling.
Challenged him to a golf match where he was going to spot President Biden 10 strokes on each side of the nine, the front and back nine. And then here's Donald Trump.
I'm also officially challenging Cricket Joe to an 18-hole golf match right here. On Doral Blue Monster, considered one of the greatest tournament golf courses anywhere in the world, one of the great courses of the world. It will be among the most watched sporting events in history, maybe bigger than the Ryder Cup or even the Masters. And I will even give Joe Biden 10 strokes aside. 10 strokes, that's a lot. That means 20 strokes in case you don't play golf. I will give him 10 strokes aside, and if he wins, I will give the charity of his choice, any charity that he wants, $1 million. And I'll bet you he doesn't take the offer.
A man who could barely read off a teleprompter.
Yeah. It's going to be awkward when that charity is Black Lives Matters.
Yeah. Or
any charity of choice, right?
Campaign
Here you go.
Funds.
$1 million to Black Lives Matter is what Joe Biden
the Democratic
has
campaign.
decided.
The other thing, right after this, he gave an example of what Biden would look like swinging a golf club. I mean, the ratings would be unbelievable if this were ever to happen.
I love the description of Doral more than anything about that whole video. Well, beautiful course, wonderful. Some say the best ever in the world. One of the world's best courses. It's such a great tourism board. If he was on the marketing team for that course, that's what it sounds like. Donald Trump sounds like an impression of Donald Trump more and more.
Now he does, yeah.
He's completely morphed into, at the beginning, there was a caricature, almost a cartoon character version of the Donald Trump impression. And now that Donald Trump continues on, that right there, you could have told me that was Dana Carvey doing a Donald Trump impression if I closed my eyes, and I would have believed you. He now sounds exactly like the impressions or the caricature of him. Even with the little side cutaways, while he's reading from a prompter, you can tell.
Yeah.
But the side cutaways about how beautiful and nice the course is.
Well, it's a great sales pitch for the...
And for those that don't know golf, that's 20 strokes.
He owns the course.
Yeah, it's
all
really,
4 of the championship courses there.
Really, really
the
funny.
Blue Monster.
It would break some... I don't know if it'd break ratings records, depending on where it would be aired.
Can you imagine?
But it would be way bigger than that.
The follow-up to the debate is
well, remember
golf.
the Capital One Challenge?
Yeah.
At first it was Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods, and then it became Brady, Aaron Rodgers, the match. Yeah, the match. This would do far better than the match.
Oh, it would be.
The first one was the day after Thanksgiving, if you remember, on the Friday after Thanksgiving.
It would, I mean, every network would carry it.
I would think. But, I mean,
hello, friends.
I don't know.
You have Nance call it?
You'd have to have a lot of waivers signed for this. I think to get Joe Biden to do anything physically active right now,
I know
there'd be a lot of waivers that needed to be signed.
Well, he mentioned last year or whatever it was. He got his when he was vice president, he got his handicap down to a 6.
I think Hutton, all the if I turned away after Joe Biden's first answer in the debate, I heard Joe Biden answer a question and then Donald Trump, and I think I started watching WNBA. I think the Mystics were on TV.
Went straight to Ion.
Went straight to Ion. I think it was on Ion 2 that night, in fact. Or maybe MTV 2. I'm not sure. But I went and watched WNBA instead of watching that debate because it was that bad. Watching our current president just falter the way that he did. That how long, here's a question for you, Hutton. Knowing me, how long would I make it watching Joe Biden flounder around, and Donald Trump for that matter, even though he would probably win,
he can play some golf.
Handing him 20 strokes.
Club champion.
How long would I stay and watch two 80-year-old men golf?
You longer than you did the match.
Yeah, but at least for the match, I felt like those guys were decent.
No, I mean, Trump can play.
I'm sure he can. He plays a lot of golf.
Yeah, he's the club champ.
But also, do I don't watch the seniors tour. Like, am I going to watch two 80-year-olds play golf against each other?
I mean, can you imagine?
I'm going to watch.
The historic. Here he is doing the
I'm
swing.
not trying to. I'm not being so contrarian as to argue this thing would not do massive ratings. It absolutely would do massive ratings. I would absolutely tune into it. But at what hole would the allure of it wear off and you realize I'm just watching two geriatrics play golf against each other? Hole 3, hole 4, the turn. Am I watching to the turn?
Well, I mean, he's getting 10
Am I
more
going to
strokes
sit and
at the
watch
turn.
all 18 holes? I'm legitimately interested in asking the question, am I watching all 18 of this? Are you watching all 18, or are you turning away at some point?
I would have it on.
It's like watching a car accident type thing?
I would have it on. Just maybe this would be a total massacre on the scoreboard.
And that's why it's a 20-stroke
It's amazing
lead that he's giving Joe Biden.
But this was a follow-up after he said, later this week, let's have another debate. He's like, maybe, we can have, I believe he had Rubio or something. He mentioned Rubio in Florida. It's like, you can referee or do whatever, but this is no rules, no holds barred.
What is the line from Tombstone? I've got it. Let's have a spelling contest. That's what Doc Holliday challenges Ike Clanton to eventually when he loses in poker. I mean, we could keep the challenges going at this point. Like, it's hilarious, but it could be almost anything.
Yeah, I mean, they can you imagine like the every answer in the debate was like that, right? Behind the scenes, it was like, oh, don't go there. But at the end, he's bringing up golf and his 6 handicap whenever he's the VP.
Yeah, it's just it's reached the point of just it's hilarious to think about this golf match actually happening, which will never happen. Absolutely never will happen. It is fun to think about. It's also very sad to think about someone who does not have their faculties anymore being challenged to literally anything.
Yeah, because everyone...
I mean, it could be, let's do a man versus food hot dog eating contest or go to a restaurant, do it. Joe Biden's going to lose to Donald Trump in anything because he does not have his faculties
by the way,
about him.
The Biden campaign dismisses the golf challenge from Donald Trump.
Yeah, the easy comeback if you're the president is, he's got a lot of time to play golf because he lost the election. I'm the president. I don't spend a lot of time playing golf. So, yeah, he'd beat me. You win, Donald Trump. That's what I would say if I were the Biden campaign. But they're not smart enough to say that.
Well, they said...
Instead, they said that he hasn't, shown his face since the debate?
No, James Singer, the campaign spokesperson, said Joe Biden doesn't have time for Donald Trump's weird antics. He's busy leading America and defending the free world.
Yeah, so pretty much what I said.
Yeah.
I don't have time for golf, man. I'm not playing a lot of golf these days. I'm leading the free world.
But this is the quote about the debate. Let's do another debate this week so that Joe Biden can prove to everyone all over the world that he has what it takes to be president. But this time it will be man-to-man, no moderators, no holds barred. Just name the place, anytime, anywhere. That's from Trump at the rally. Yeah,
it's really it's almost just kicking down at this point because it's become so bad. Hutton, when George Clooney writes an op-ed, George Clooney, who's one of the biggest Democrat donors in the world, when he writes an op-ed telling you, demanding that you step down and not run for re-election, that's when you know you've probably lost.
Well, and Biden's the one that brought up the challenge anyway. He said, as long as if you carry your own bag, to Trump at the debate.
Yeah.
It's just, this
is also
it was already off the deep end.
Because Joe Biden started it with the golf stuff at the debate, right? This is evidence that you can just say anything in a debate, apparently, and then just walk away from it because now it's Donald Trump following up on Joe Biden's challenge and giving the terms for the challenge, and still knowing that it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's...
Again, when you've lost George Clooney as a Democratic nominee, and George Clooney is saying, I saw his mental and physical decline in person at an event, a fundraising event 3 weeks ago, well, it's going to be over.
We've all...
I think it's going to be over.
In some way, Chad, we've all experienced the loved one or the friend or, a friend's parent, whatever it might be, have this same type of decline.
Yeah.
Where it's gradual. It's not all the time. My grandmother suffered from this, from Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, and it's a gradual decline, and then there's the crash, right? So I think, Americans can relate to this and how sad it is that you see someone on the steep decline, and then the way that it's all been handled behind the scenes. It's a sad state.
Yeah, it's not even. I don't. I don't know how anyone takes joy in it anymore.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I don't.
Clay's
I
going
don't
to
know
join us. Clay's talking about the scandal behind the scenes and where it ranks
the
in
cover up.
Yes, and where it ranks in American history, or where it could if they're hiding the diagnosis
Right.
of dementia.
Well, and I think you said it well.
Or
Hutton.
Parkinson's, excuse me.
Almost everyone's had someone
You can
affected by
yes,
this. You
yeah.
can think about my Uncle Richard passed away probably about a year ago after a slow decline from Parkinson's.
Yeah.
And you're right in that there are times where it's, oh, there's the old Uncle Richard.
Yeah.
Everything seems better or seems fine. And then the next time you see him 3 months later, it's worse. Then you might see him 2 weeks later, and it's a little bit better. And then there are times it's almost catatonic.
Yes.
The state that they're in, it's not fun. None of this is fun. Now, the idea of them golfing against each other on live television, that's fun. That's funny. The rest of it, I don't find much joy in any of it.
No. I don't find a ton of, I don't know. I don't think it's funny what Mike Gundy said at Big 12 Media Days in his defense of Ollie Gordon Jr. Here's Mike Gundy yesterday that everyone's discussing, talking about how many beers he's been able to drink and then drive, and comparing it to Ollie Gordon Jr., his star running back, which will not face any punishment on the field, maybe off the field behind the scenes, but he's going to play because it's a business decision.
First, I thought, okay. So I looked it up on my phone. What would be the legal limit? Like in Oklahoma is .08, and Ollie was .1. So I looked it up, and it was based on body weight. Not to get into the legal side of it, but I thought really 2 or 3 beers or 4. I'm not justifying what Ollie did. I'm telling you what decision I made. Well, I thought I've probably done that 1,000 times in my life. And it's just fine. So I got lucky. People get lucky.
I think when you've got a haircut like that and you're talking to someone, if I'm conducting that interview and he says, I've probably done that 1,000 times, I'm just nodding like, yeah, I'm looking at you right now, and that definitely tracks. I could definitely see Mike Gundy doing that.
This is right up there for me, right beneath the "I'm a man, I'm 40" quote.
Yeah. It's very honest.
It's
like
not, it's
it
honest,
goes in line with what he said yesterday.
And there are so many different instances of coaches doing exactly this and not facing the same criticism. However, it is tone deaf when you have a draft pick of the Minnesota Vikings die in a crash along with 2 of his high school teammates over the July 4th weekend, and alcohol was involved.
Yeah.
And you're passing it off like, well, no big deal. He's accounted for this. No one was hurt. He's going to play. It's a business. It is. I mean, coaches, again, have done this time and time again. We pointed out yesterday what Alabama's done. But you have to handle this better than just riffing the way he's riffing there.
It's a classic example, Hutton, of just saying too much.
Yeah,
I think with him, like I was totally okay with his previous explanation of,
right,
we're not going to let him hide from it. He's going to have to go and face the music, answer questions about it. But I'm also not going to suspend him because I'm running a business now, and that's not fair to everyone else to do that. And he said, I'm going to run him 50 times during the game.
Yeah.
As punishment. Like, I'm totally fine with all that.
And he brought him to Big 12 media. Oh, that's fine.
This is a case of incredible honesty. This is like the Chappelle Show sketch when keeping it real goes wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
You've just said way too much. Like, I think there's a lot of people who hear Mike Gundy and say, yeah, I understand what he's saying. And a lot of people nodding along saying, yep, guilty of this as well. But you're right. With the timing of what happened with the Vikings player, and no matter what you're trying to communicate, it sounds as if you're taking the responsibility away from the player and condoning it. So you could tell as he's saying it, he's even catching himself doing it and trying to reel that bad boy back in and say, I'm not condoning what Ollie did, but here are examples of this. And I know that he puts the statement out afterward, was saying, his intended point at media days was that we're all guilty of making bad decisions. It was not a reference to something specific. I understand what he's saying. This is just when keeping it real goes wrong. You don't have to say so much. Like, you said enough with your previous answer about why you haven't suspended him. I accept the rationale. I don't expect everyone to agree with him not being suspended for a game or multiple games, but I accept the rationale from Mike Gundy. This is just him saying too much.
Yes, and in the grand scheme of things, he's right in saying this. suspending him one game does what in the grand scheme of things, right?
Yeah.
It's an opportunity for him to put up stats. He was the Heisman Trophy. He wasn't a finalist. He was
close.
He was a snub, right? Very close and deserving. A fantastic running back. Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year, in 2022 or 23? 23. But, Chad, they're playing South Dakota State to open the season on August 31st. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've seen
and like you said, we're going to run them 50 times.
Yeah, because they're going to beat the crap out of
and they're just going to run the ball a lot.
Yeah, but what he's done is by doing this, you're right. He took away any criticism or any type of facing the music that Ollie Gordon Jr. was bound to face, because the player handled this way better than the coach. Does it bother me that he's going to play? No, not really. But Ollie Gordon Jr. has just faced it and said, yeah, any punishment that coach deems necessary, I will accept it, and I deserve it. He was straight up with it. And the other thing is, he's 20 years old. That's the other factor.
It's illegal to drink, period.
Yeah. Now, let's not get it twisted here. But
we all did some underage. We'll be like Gundy right here and say, I am guilty of underage drinking before I was 21.
But it's just you've got the face of your university in Mike Gundy, who's riffing at Big 12 Media Days and taking up for a player that made a dumb mistake and acting like it's a routine. I mean, if you're a backup at Oklahoma State, now if you're a walk-on, it's like, hey, if I want to play, this is the route to do it. I'm not going to be suspended. I'll get 50 carries.
Yeah, I don't – and I'm truly fascinated by Gundy because conventional wisdom and rules don't seem to apply to him in his program.
I was just thinking about this. If Kiffin did this, imagine the reaction.
Like, if you're suspending him, I think for a lot of coaches – you're doing it because, well, that's just what's always been done. You're appeasing the mob, right? You're getting on the right side of social media, because there's not anyone that's going to be like, man, you went too hard on that kid by suspending him for a game or two. If you do it, so if you disagree with suspending the player for something like this, then by doing it, you're just doing what's always been done and to appease the social media mob. So I can understand with being contrarian to that. And saying, we asked Dan Dockich about it yesterday, and he said he was a righteous SOB, right? When he was coaching, and he would have done this.
Credit for
but
that.
Now it's just, I totally get what Gundy's saying, and I totally understand what Gundy's saying, and I'm okay with his decision not to suspend him. But then Gundy goes on and says and does these things.
Right, looking up
He's been criticized by what news network he follows for news, or what hats and shirts he's wearing. There's nothing about the Oklahoma State program that makes sense to me. Like, they're never a top recruiting program. They're never going to be in the top 10, 15 in recruiting. I don't even know where they go for most of their players, but yet it all works to a winning formula for him.
Yeah.
And for that university in Stillwater, Oklahoma, which is not exactly the beacon of college football towns. But it works for what he wants in his program and what they do offensively, defensively. He hires good coaches that work for him.
And he gets good players for the conference.
It's a really interesting, it's not to a Mike Leach level, who always found a way to win more at football outpost than anyone else could.
Yeah.
But uniquely for Oklahoma State, a place where Mike Gundy played quarterback and understands, all of this insanity works for him. And I don't quite understand how.
Well, the other thing, too, in the NFL, the team doesn't do much. They wait on the legal process to play out, and then the league comes in with conduct detrimental to the league. Cam Sutton's a good example. The Steelers signed him, and he's been suspended for 8 games now. But Mike Tomlin vouched for him and said, I met this kid in Knoxville, and I know this guy. I want him on this roster. Well, he's going to help them win.
Yeah.
He's that type of player.
That's why they want him.
Yeah, the Lions would love to have Cam Sutton on the roster. But, again, they wait on the league. And in this case, in college football, the programs determine what they want to do. Case in point, you have the bickering back and forth with A&M and Alabama, right, with Jimbo and Saban. And Sankey got involved behind the scenes, but it was really up to the two coaches on how far they wanted to elevate the controversy or whatever with NIL and recruiting and paying players. Point being, Gundy handled it worse than the player who made a dumb choice. And that's not what I want in my face of the university, by the way. You know what I mean?
What about your hair of the university? Is that what you want? That helmet that he's wearing?
Dude.
At all times? I mean, that guy's – that
is
coif is fascinating.
Is this a Kentucky waterfall or Missouri Compromise?
What is he taking also to grow more hair at his age?
Well, look
I
at
feel
the
like
flow.
he has more hair on his head now than he did at 25 or 30 years old.
Yeah, it's the flow, right?
When he was a man and he was 40, he looked like a 40-year-old man's head of hair.
Yeah, he went from like Pert Plus to Redken.
Yeah. Now that he's pushing, well, I guess what, late
how
50s?
old is he now? Let me look.
Maybe pushing 60. Like he has
55?
miraculously grown so much more hair.
And he is 56.
Is he taking
16 years ago, man, when he was talking about I'm a man, I'm 40.
Look at that hair.
I know. I mean, it's impressive.
It looks like one of those fake things they put on you to.
Yeah, he definitely paints
like
his hair too.
A doctored photo.
If he didn't dye his hair, think about how gray he would be. Look at his eyebrows, his beard, and his burns.
Yeah.
He would go total gray.
I love that.
Grecian gray.
I love that their sponsor is Totino's.
Touch
also.
of gray.
Like the microwavable pizzas. So
the pizza rolls?
The pizza rolls, yeah. Totino's pizza rolls.
Better Golden Flake or Totino's?
Totino's.
Okay.
Totino's. Also,
Depends.
just the perfect sponsor for Oklahoma State football is Totino's pizza rolls.
Yeah, it's great
and then
whenever
that
you're
Mike
drunk
Gundy hair.
and you have a midnight snack.
With that Grecian formula that he's put in it.
Speaking of faces of the university, Deion Sanders, Big 12.
Coach Prime.
Coach Prime, Big 12 Media Days started yesterday. Deion center stage today. And prime time, Deion Sanders showed up in Vegas, man. He's got the sunglasses on in the dome. And he plays the part. I mean, he shows up and he is Prime, Coach Prime. And no matter how much I want to find a sliver of something that makes me think this guy is going to convince me otherwise of just being about ball, because he's about cash and he's about the flash and Hollywood. But when it comes to coaching, I think his heart is in it for the right reasons. I like his approach, his honesty, and the fact he's not shying away from the fact that, well, there's a lot of attention in year 2 for him.
Do you feel an obligation with whom you are to perform at a higher level or coach at a higher level?
Yeah, yes. I'm judged on a different scale. My wins are totally different than your wins. Your wins, you just judge in football. That's why I have to start out and give you education and academics and so forth. I have to give you those things so you understand there's a greater scope. I can't win 9 games and our GPA suffers. Our GPA can't be high, but we lose another 8 games. We can't not go and grab high school players and you got a bunch of guys in the portal, out of the portal that's getting incarcerated. My wins are different. We have to win in every area. That's the way we're judged. And I'm cool with that because we come a little different.
I like what he said. He's going to get to NIL in a moment and about the bag, the money. But here is Deion speaking about his team in year 2 as the head coach at Colorado and the optimism he has for 2024.
The offensive line and the way they train, the way they work, the way they go about their job. When I see the defensive line coaches and the way they're on their kids and the way they're demanding excellence and the way these young men are working and the athletes that they are and the bodies that they have and they've developed right now. When I see the receiving core staying after practice to work with their quarterback, quarterbacks coming over there on off days to work with one another. When I see the running backs doing the same, led by a former walk-on, Charlie Offdahl, you know, when I see the special teams that Mark Bissett is here right now, I think he's a darn pro, and Mata that don't miss, and Jace Feely and those guys that they can't wait till there's time. They understand special teams mean that we're special. when I see the secondary, shoot, and they get out of bed and want to play man-to-man coverage. I love it. And Shiloh can't wait to hit somebody. Cam Selman, so many of the guys, the change made from safety to linebacker with Trevor. And I really think this young man is going to be the next Brian Urlacher. I think he's going to make that transition from safety to linebacker and be dominant. Like I just see the want and the fire and desire from our young men, and I can't wait till you get an opportunity to see it as well. So I'm very optimistic on what we have on our plate this year.
So I bring up that clip. Just keep this in mind because we'll react to all of these. That was a layup for him if he wanted to mention his son and Travis Hunter. And he did the opposite by naming other guys. I've never heard Deion do this specifically. I love that. He's naming other guys, giving credit to the next Brian Urlacher at Colorado. Recruiting has been a huge talking point. He loves what he's done in recruiting. Just hear him out.
I've sat in all seats. The parent seat, being recruited as the kid, now being the coach. That helps me tremendously when I'm recruiting. When I'm understanding what the parent is thinking, what the kid is thinking, now what the coach desires to want to know. It's been a tremendous asset for me to understand those facets of this new recruiting age that is impacted tremendously by NILs and collectives. So I love it. Sometimes I don't like it, but I love it, and I love that these kids are being compensated somewhat for what they bring to the table. I don't want them to put the bag before the game, because if you have the game, the bag is going to come. I want them to understand that. But I just don't want to take away from the purity of this wonderful game that we have. College football is phenomenal, man. This conference is phenomenal. Look at where we are. You got to be kidding me, man. I'm a brother from Fort Myers, Florida, and I'm sitting up here in the darn end zone in Las Vegas talking to the whole darn country about a childish game that I played when I was a shawty. Don't you understand how powerful and how wonderful it is? And I'm so darn thankful to be here. So I try to relay that to all our young men. This is a moment, man. You better maximize it, and let's go get it. But thank you. It's a wonderful question.
See, and that's Deion playing the three roles that he just discussed: player, coach, parent. And he's approaching this like he played, which is legit. Final thing. He doesn't like talking about building a culture at Colorado. He wants to point out the process.
The focus and intention, I think ever since I stepped into Florida State in '85, it's been like that for me. This ain't new to me. I'm not new to this. Like we say in the hood, I'm true to this. So this is new to some of you all, and you want us to change. We're not going to change. We're going to try to do things being smart, tough, fast, disciplined, with character. That's what we're relaying to all our young men. But the cameras and the lights, I think, I haven't seen one kid here today that said he didn't like that. He may not like the process, but he likes the package that you wrap him up in and you put him out there. All these kids are excited about the EA Sports game, right? There's scores and levels. They want attention. They want affection. They want love. They want adoration. Adulation, I'm sorry. Yeah, we give you that. But you got to work first so you can understand the consistency thereof. It's going to take you to where you want to go and retire mom and dad, if that's what you please.
All right, we'll stay over here on the
So there's Deion today. The only thing I'm thinking in that last one is, Chad, he would crush it in high school recruiting if he did the in-person visits. Think about him relaying this message to parents. Now, everything that he said today, again, when he's behind a microphone, I like the fact that he's like, yeah, I understand that the pressure's on. And I expect to do more than what we've done. There's no PR push to say, well, we're making strides. This takes time to build the program. He's blunt. He loves the spotlight. He's describing himself in that last answer too. But I like Coach Deion Sanders. I really do. I'm not I'm not rooting against him. Now, some of the things that may happen, sure, with the players on the field, but I like the way he's approaching this. I think it's kind of what we miss about college football right now is some of what he's talking about.
I like when he's talking about the gratitude part of it. You know, I'm a kid from Fort Myers.
And I love college football. And
I love college football. It's a great game. Look around. This is awesome. I'm in the end zone of this stadium in Vegas and talking to America about this stuff. I love all that stuff. There are times when I hear him talk, it goes back to me just the whole dichotomy of you said it, Hutton, Coach Deion Sanders versus Prime.
Yeah.
And the mixed messaging that whether or not this is what he's trying to do, that comes across to me. Love the answer about being grateful and how great college football is. I like what he said at the end about, hey, you know, we want to be about discipline and toughness and speed and character, but I don't see a kid walking around here that hates these cameras and hates being around the media and hates the attention. So we lean into that aspect too, but we talk about it takes the work to get there, to get that adulation. I'm okay with most of everything that he's saying. Now, he also, when he's talking about his team, I feel like he was searching for players' names and wasn't finding them at times. He mentioned two guys, one first name and then the linebacker in the end that he compared to Brian Urlacher. But he's just saying a lot of things. Boy, our offensive line is getting bigger and working, and our receivers. And I don't know that there was a lot of specificity about his team when he was getting into that. And that just may be him at the end of a long day of talking to media and not being able to clearly land the plane with it.
He's talking about Trevor Woods, but again, I'd never heard him talk about it.
Yeah, there are still just things that they don't quite line up with what we just saw. I'm fine with.
Yeah.
And then other things that he's doing, I don't understand. And then the way he approaches the roster, right? I know there was another part of his whole speech today saying everybody says we just go to the transfer portal and we kick guys off team and we rely on the transfer portal. Well, we brought in 17 guys and 13 of the freshmen played a year ago. And I'm thinking, well, that's not a ringing endorsement for your activity in the transfer portal when you're bringing in that many transfers and you still have to rely on 13 freshmen playing.
That's a good point.
And you're probably going to have a true freshman starting left tackle in Jordan Seaton this year. So you're not doing a great job of finding the right guys in the portal if that's the case. And I just, Hutton, the question that lingers for me constantly is, as I've described him, he is Bear Bryant meets Lil Wayne. And what he's saying in these speeches and everything else kind of lines up with what I'm saying there. Is he really going to want to stick with it and coach a team that's not led on offense by his son Shador and on defense by his son Shiloh? Is he going to want to continue the process of program building, of culture building, which you didn't want to talk about there, of all those things without his sons on the team?
Well, that dude sounds like he wants to coach.
I'm hesitant to say that's what he wants to do.
I think he wants to coach. I don't know if it's at Colorado. He's praising the conference as they should. They're in a great spot as a football program, moving where they did and when they did and all that. But he's also extremely blunt and optimistic about what they've done this offseason when I think from the 30,000-foot view, it's hard to really tell where they've truly – I mean, they've improved on the offensive line. It's not hard to get better from where they were. But his quote here, he's 2 goals this offseason that were priorities for Colorado football. Stopping the run and running the football is what he told ESPNU. And then he adds in that they addressed both lines tremendously. Well, addressing it tremendously versus truly getting the upgrade that you need for a Heisman Trophy candidate preseason in Shador Sanders, that remains to be seen. But if they address the lines tremendously and they hit a home run on their offensive line, they'll run the football. But, Chad, you brought up the stats. They're not running the football at all last year. What, like 800 yards or something?
Yeah.
I mean, that is awful. It's hard to get worse than that. He's going to improve, is what I'm saying.
And I also, we can debate this.
Now, I don't know what it means in the win-loss column.
Normally, Hutton, when you move to a new conference, you're taking a step up and your competition is going to be tougher.
Yes.
Texas and Oklahoma is a good example of this.
Yes.
They're going to have tougher schedules now. Same goes for USC, UCLA, Washington, Oregon. I think their schedules are going to be tougher in the Big Ten without having all of those schedules in front of me. That's not quite the case with Colorado. I think you could make the argument, even with the Pac-12 disintegrating before their eyes, their conference schedule a year ago was tougher than their Big 12 schedule this year. And it's a lot of the same because so many Pac-12 teams went to the Big 12. But a year ago in conference, they played at Oregon, USC at home, at Arizona State, Stanford at home, at UCLA, a really good Oregon State team at home, Arizona at home, at Washington State, at Utah. Okay? That was their Pac-12 schedule. Their Big 12 schedule this year, now there's some similarities with some of the same teams. But they play Baylor at home, at UCF, Kansas State, who's going to be ranked preseason, at home, at Arizona, a team they played last year, Cincinnati at home, at Texas Tech, Utah at home, a team they played on the road last year, at Kansas, Oklahoma State at home.
I mean,
there's not one that's light years more difficult than the next when you look at those two schedules. So normally it's going to be a lot tougher when you willingly move conferences the way Colorado did. I think it's kind of a wash when you look at their conference schedules both years.
I mean, if it's a wash, they should absolutely climb the ladder on 4 wins.
Then in year 2, I think the over-under that everyone has set for them is 5.5.
It's a bowl.
If they can win, if they go 6-6, it's a win.
Yep.
Anything below that is disappointment. Anything above that is we're talking about Coach Prime going to Arkansas or Florida or somewhere else a year from now.
Clay Travis is about to join us. On the way into our chat with Clay, NBA TV rights, they've finalized this. Not officially, but it's unofficially official with the reports. NBA will announce this officially on July 26th. That's the plan, right before the Olympics. But 11 years, $76 billion. It was at, 24, I believe? Up to now, $76 billion. ESPN, NBC, and Amazon Prime. And Sunday night, NBC has Sunday Night Football. It will be Sunday Night Hoops. And you will have Thursday Night Football, Amazon Prime. When the season's over, they'll have Thursday Night NBA. But primarily, it'll be Friday, Saturday for Amazon Prime.
Video.
For Prime Video, yes. Yep. And ESPN maintains their same package, including the playoffs, ESPN, ABC for the NBA Finals, all that. TNT, I believe.
They go from 100 regular season games to 80. So they're going to carry less regular season, but they still have the same rights to playoffs and finals.
Yes, when they pulled in the numbers, right? And TNT has the right to match.
Yeah, I think that they can match one of the networks in that. And the thought is, if they do, it'll be Prime.
Okay.
But they'll take the Prime slot.
Which is what Amazon Prime Video, they took more or less what TNT had.
Yeah.
I mean, $76 billion, man. 11 years. Crazy.